Okay, welcome back. Today we are finishing lecture 2. We stopped on slide 30, I believe. And slide 30 went through, let me get to slide 30, the competitive forces. We went through competitive strategies. Well, what we're talking about, actually just to refresh your memory, because it's kind of hard to basically start in the middle of a lecture. Especially when it was like a week ago last time you heard any of this stuff. So, just to refresh your memory, we're talking about why studying strategic IT in terms of its benefit that it provides for businesses. And we looked at the view of information systems. We looked at a couple of case studies that came out of a book that's referenced on slide 2, if you remember that. I started talking about the definition of information system, definition of information technology, the mission, competitive strategies, and then I started talking about the competitive forces and strategies, things that are working against each other in terms of a few of the different characteristics. Competitive forces, looking at competition, briefly mentioned Porter's competitive forces model. But basically, I think I stopped talking in terms of competitive strategies that companies can use to implement IT to give them an advantage somehow against their competition. Could be cost, differentiation, innovation, growth, perhaps a growth strategy to grow the company using IT. And talked about the cost, talked about the differentiation, talked about the innovation and growth as well. I hit that. Alliance strategies, just keeping up. Creating business links between different business partners using technology. Actually, just a side note on this is very popular these days. Setting up hubs between companies to do supply chain management, to do enterprise resource planning, all sorts of different things where it connects a lot of companies together to form communication using technology, which is a strategy that a company can use to grow themselves, essentially, and create the alliance that they're needing. In order to get better relationships between suppliers and things. Because, the better the relationship, the more profitable normally or the more effective the company can be. I think this was the summary chart of the competitive strategy examples. Made it this far, looking at business benefits that are associated with the use of the strategic implementations. Other competitive strategies would be to lock a customer in. You're selling them a product, you're selling them upgrades to the product, you're locking them into continuing, hopefully. You might call that a retention or a loyalty as well for customers. Or building switching costs so that the firm's customer suppliers are reluctant to pay the costs that it would cost them to switch from your company to another company. More competitive strategies in terms of how you can use IT to lock your customers in. And I think actually this is probably where I stopped last time. So I'll pick up about right here. This is about right? Yeah, okay. So other competitive strategies to think about. Raising the barriers to entry. If you are creating a product, you don't necessarily want everybody else to create the same product. So you can use IT to sort of create that barrier to discourage or delay companies from competing with you or from entering into the market. Not always with a product, it may also have something to do with a service. In fact, a lot of companies like, for example, Salesforce.com and some of the other service providers that provide sales leads, marketing information, services. If you're good and if you can provide something and it's inexpensive, it kind of discourages the competition, actually. The bigger you are and the more effective you are, discourages people to compete with you. It's kind of like someone coming out and trying to compete with Microsoft. I mean, who's going to make another Windows version? No one's going to buy it, essentially. I mean, that's kind of a given. But if you have maybe you're not Microsoft and you're a smaller company and you're using that kind of same strategy, the bigger you seem, the harder it is for people to kind of break into, take away some of that stuff. Take away some of what you're offering. And then leveraging investments in information technology, developing new products and services that would not be possible without a strong IT capability. So, in terms of automatic processing, this is actually kind of like what carriers do. If you are a FedEx or a UPS, you have automatic tracking. You have internet programs and you type in a tracking number. you're mixed with shopping carts and other purchasing engines so that customers can essentially track packages, schedule shipments, and things of that nature. It's a lot of infrastructure. It's a lot of technology that's being used to provide that service. If you're a small company and you're thinking about getting into the package handling business, you know you're going to have to build that IT infrastructure and that capability. Otherwise, you can't compete. So that's another kind of competitive advantage or strategy that a company can use is create so much IT strong capabilities that it takes too much work, too much effort to compete with that. Advantages versus necessities is an issue that comes up in terms of a competitive advantage versus a competitive necessity. And that's actually kind of like what I just talked about a few minutes ago with shipping. It's a necessity. If you're going to open up a shipping company and you're going to compete with FedEx or UPS, you have to provide those services. If not, no one's going to use you. So in order for your product or service to even exist, you have to compete with a business that is using something that could give them a competitive advantage at the same time, and yet block you, create a barrier, create a necessity for you that is going to prevent you from competing. In terms of the competitive advantage, you might actually be doing something better than your competition, hopefully, using technology. And that might actually, technology that perhaps they don't have their hands on, they don't have access to. That could possibly give you a better competitive advantage as well. And, going back to that competitive advantages kind of statement, sometimes it's actually the time of entry. Like if a brand new technology comes out, only a few people have it. It's kind of like people with their own personal electronics. Like when the iPhone first came out, it was expensive, $400, $500, and I think it's now a little bit cheaper. It was only available on AT&T, and it was, so not that many people got it. So those people who had it, were able to use it. Well, a company can kind of use that kind of same thing with new technologies if they want to invest in it and actually implement something that's cutting edge. Their competitors aren't going to have it yet. Maybe they don't want to invest in that. They're going to wait for the price to drop. So you kind of have to leverage the extra expense you're paying to be competitive, to be cutting edge, to be the first on the block to have this technology, and see if that's going to bring you more revenue from a business perspective than it would if you just waited like everybody else did. Fortunately, what ends up happening is a lot of companies do wait, because why are you going to be so cutting edge? It's a lot of money you're spending on something that just wait a little bit, price goes down, it's more affordable, and then everybody enters the market at the same time, and the competition is sort of like still in sync with itself, which in a perfect world would be great. However, we don't have companies that always follow that pattern. Some companies like to be cutting edge, like to install stuff. We saw that kind of like with the iPads, actually. A lot of salespeople got cutting-edge iPads, and they don't even know what to do with them. It's like, well, we have internet access everywhere we go. And it's like, well, it's the same as a computer. It's the same as a notebook computer. They could open it up and use it. But companies spend a lot of money issuing everybody an iPad because now they can use it to, manage their work while they're on the road. Half the people weren't on the road, so, yeah. Anyway, so we can also look at customer-focused businesses, which is a business that can anticipate customers' future needs and respond to customers' concerns and provide top-quality customer service. So customer service is one of those things that's kind of degraded, I think, over the years. In the old days, it was something where, it was expected. Now you're happy if you get customer service. Oh, wow, somebody actually answered the phone. Wow, somebody responded to my email. Wow, it's a surprise instead of they were supposed to, So in a lot of ways, that's kind of driven by companies' ability to remain competitive, to cut expenses, to provide mediocre quality just to get something provided. When they can't really afford, let's say, to provide top-notch customer service. Because a lot of companies don't actually see that. They don't see that as a value added to the product or to the company. And then if you don't follow that, if you follow the customer-focused business and you spend a lot of money on IT to help those customers, that can actually give you a strategic advantage, because now your entire image is above average. Your entire customer service is now good compared to mediocre. And now people will buy your product, hopefully, because you like them and you're catering to them as a customer, which can buy you a few points, I would say. How much it will buy you, it depends. And again, it's another gamble. It's something where you can make an investment in something, you can anticipate customer needs, you can give a customer what you think they want and they may not even want it. Or they take it and they use it and, okay, no problem. This is kind of like reward points and things. Companies that provide, let's say, frequent flyer miles, frequent stay, rewards and things like that. And then they end up, in the long run, they end up cutting some of those programs when they find out, oh, their customers, they're not buying our product anymore, or using our service any more than they would have if we didn't have these points. So it does take a lot of analysis to see if that's actually going to have any effect on the bottom line. So information systems is a customer-focused business in terms of, and you probably can't read what's on that slide too well, but what we're looking at is, you can probably see the colors maybe. There's two blue circles here. See if my mouse is working. We have one in the middle here. It says transaction databases. Over here we have customer databases. And what we're doing is building an infrastructure of sharing information between the two databases through customer-focused applications and utilities. For example, up here it says let customers place orders directly from the internet, which is going in directly to the IT, into the transaction database that is connected to the customer database. So essentially what we're doing is providing services, focusing on the customer's needs, which is kind of the basic model these days if you think about it, but we had to get there somehow. I mean, somebody had to come up with this technique and this infrastructure. Customers allowing them to place orders, check order status, check the history, and do a bunch of accounting in terms of their transactions and things. Which leads us to the concept of a value chain. We can focus information technology on this value chain. By definition, the view of the firm as a series or a chain. We have tons of different chains in business. Product supply chain, value chain, development. But if you think of it as a network, a chain of basic activities that adds values to the product or services, and then you add a margin of value both to the firm and to its customers. And so if you kind of think of the business as a chain, and you can break it out and focus IT on the different components that make up the chain or the link between IT, the customer, the company, the suppliers, and everything else that might be associated with them. And so here we have this picture here leading to the bottom margin, which is hopefully some improved value, because really the only reason why we're doing any of this is just get something, some benefit, either more profits, higher margins, I don't know, better customers, more customers. More customers would be good in terms of if you're selling a product or a service. In terms of the value chain, what you've got up here, you can't probably read it from where you're sitting, but a firm's infrastructure, its network, its telecommunications, wireless, anything it might have, human resource management, technology development, procurement is kind of on the top. Underneath it, what we're looking at is inbound logistics, operations, outbound. So it's kind of like the business aspect of it, the service, the marketing, sales, the logistics on the bottom, and then supported also coming into the chain are all these other aspects and components. So if we focus on the chain, we can apply technology to it. Either make it more effective, more streamlined, provide more communication between these different components, streamline it, automate it, make it run a lot more effectively, and then actually add focus to it and add definition as well. And here's how it kind of, looking at the value chain, how it actually comes together. Out here on one side we have support processes, preliminary business processes and things that are coming in terms of marketing ideas, sales promotions, company goals, future initiatives. And then coming out of it here is competitive advantage on this arrow on this side over here. And these are basically the same components we were looking at in the previous slide, in terms of the business components and all of the supporting aspects of it. And basically just re-emphasizing the point that it's leading us to a competitive advantage somehow. And it's really a combination of all of those different parts that's going to hopefully give us some competitive advantage, maybe, especially if we apply IT to it. So here's another case study using IT to tap expert know-how. So if you think about this as a concept, we can apply technology to give us more clearly defined links in this chain. Links, communication, also establish the communication between the links. Then we can create services, services from within the company as an organizational way of operating, the way of purchasing, the way of scheduling, planning, managing, and we can also provide services outside of the company. And so this particular case study is kind of going into the Ask Me knowledge management system. Some of you may have heard about this. It's been out, probably about 5 or 10 years ago. Ask Me network. It actually kind of was not really that successful, actually, but it's an example of what I call a knowledge-based system or an expert system, which is completely IT and information systems based. What it's doing is it's taking and capturing expert knowledge and it's putting it into a computer application for something. It's either for internal, as I was saying before, inside of the value chain, either to help the organization be more productive or to help its customers be more productive as a service or provide some communication. There's many different focuses and reasons for it. It exists to automate things, so you can automate best practices, automate procedures and processes, which is kind of like how information systems actually made it into like a good area or a good investment for any business. Because if you can theoretically take someone's job, standardize it, automate it, create an information system that complements it or helps actually that person do their job, it streamlines the whole process and makes consistency between everyone who's doing that job. So all salespeople are entering in orders the same way. And when you go online to buy a product, all customers are actually using the same engine application to essentially process their orders themselves. But you can apply that same concept to things outside of just order entry. I mean, purchasing, marketing ideas, strategies, project planning, all sorts of different concepts can be automated and streamlined through the use of information technology. And in terms of what this Ask Me knowledge management system is doing, is it's actually taking expert knowledge that the average person wouldn't know, automating it, putting it into an application, which is how we get this concept of the expert system. Expert systems are all over the internet. In fact, they're used a lot in business, everyday business. When you go to southwest.com as an example, and try to book a flight, it's an expert system under there because you're putting in the date you want to leave, date you want to come back, where you're going to, and it's going to find what's available. It's only going to list, and hopefully it's going to list things that are available and the prices, and it's automatically doing all of the is it 2 weeks in advance, 1 week in advance? It's also automatically doing all the price calculations for you, listing it all out, giving you selections to options to select from. That's a classic example of an expert system because it's thinking. It's, instead of, in the old days before we had this, you went to a travel agency, actually, or you called up on the phone, and the person on the phone had a book or she had printouts, and she went manually through and, okay, we have 2 seats left on this flight here, which is kind of slow. So when you go online, you can order, you can book a flight within 5 minutes or less, and actually pay for it and print your boarding pass out and everything right there from your home, and go to the airport and leave. Which is kind of a value-added service. And the expert that's being added into the service is the travel agent, who is the computer application, is the computer expert. So you can do this with medical diagnosis. You can do it with troubleshooting on problems. People have tried it with technical support and customer service databases and has failed miserably. Because when people are in trouble, they need help, they want to talk to a human normally. So if you've ever been a victim of one of those, press 1 for this. If your problem is this, press 1. Hold on, let me tell you about another problem you might have. Press 2. And then people end up going 0. And if you're like me, I press 0 or star. I want to speak to a person. The systems are gone, but when I say that, everyone smiles and, oh yeah, I remember that. because they've been the common source of jokes and, you know, ridicule because they were just so bad. Now, actually, you can kind of sort of see it still with some web pages, especially when you start filling out surveys and stuff. The concept is still there. It's a series of yes/no questions. It's a series of something that's screening you, taking you to some location on the website that's going to hopefully provide you with what you're looking for. That's actually an example of an expert system as well. And in terms of one that provides knowledge, that's where this Ask Me Knowledge management system comes into play, because it's basically acting as an expert, you know, almost like a traffic person to guide you to the right answer to something. And so it automated experts profile creation, additions of numerous methods for accessing and delivering knowledge, can be used in a company. A lot of corporate intranet websites are done this way, where you click on, you know, manufacturing link, and it takes you to over here, and you can navigate your way. The navigation is sort of an expert system because it's organizing something for you and showing you what you need, helping you. So we have different types that actually use knowledge as well. Most like legal databases, most dictionary kind of applications, where you're looking up something because you need to find out an answer to a question. In fact, you can consider the web search engines, Google, Yahoo. Those are knowledge-based expert systems, because you're typing a phrase, it's using an algorithm to go out and find matches, and it's coming back with a list of, you know, this is what we found, this is what we're giving you. So it's acting like the knowledge person. Okay, so the benefits: expert knowledge is organized, well, hopefully. Experts are more easily contacted. You can take, you know, if you could actually, this kind of sounds a little artificial intelligence-y, but if you can actually take someone's knowledge and put it in a computer program, then anyone who wanted to can use that, and you don't have to keep bugging that person. It's recorded somehow. And we haven't really gotten there yet. We don't have like the sci-fi, the orbs, you know, that know everything. We go ask it a question, it comes back. It's kind of like the magic 8-ball. You twist it around, and go, yes or no. Gives me the right answer, hopefully, maybe not. So the information is reusable, hopefully, saving 750 hours of repetitive work. Well, kind of, yeah. If you think about it, it is reusable as a resource. You get a return on investment, could be tracked. Actually, you can keep track of clicks. You can keep track. In fact, a lot of people do this to see, you know, especially in a customer service environment, technical support environment. You see the frequently asked questions. You know, it's all listed out in a hierarchy. They click on it and it opens up. And then on the bottom, usually says, "Was this helpful?" I usually skip all that because it's too time consuming. Because after I click yes or no, then, oh, give me some reasons why. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that. I just want to get out of here. I'm done. I solved my problem. I want to go back to work and do whatever I was doing. But that's a way of obtaining feedback and using it to kind of trace to see, did anyone actually make it to this point in the tree, in the hierarchy, and was it helpful? And maybe if it is, maybe we should print something in a manual. Maybe we should change the feature. Maybe we should do something to correct it. Popular topics are identified. So I can, you know, basically beef up different areas and kind of figure out, in terms of this particular Ask Me network, I can kind of tailor it to information that's obtainable. And this Ask Me network, believe it or not, is just a network of knowledge that you can ask questions. You can go in and say, you know, is it going to rain today? You know, and it comes back and says, yes, there's a highly likely chance it's going to rain, or no, it's not going to rain. And it's using an expert system as a backbone. So in terms of some questions, and I'm not going to go through all of these, but some things to ponder about in terms of this type of environment, type of example. The key business challenges facing companies in supporting their global market expansion and efforts. Can this be a viable solution to address that? And you know, how is the Ask Me management system helping to meet these challenges? And is it? It might not be a bad idea to actually kind of think about. Well, it's a good question to ask, actually, because some of these technologies do more harm than they actually do good. So I'm going to actually kind of skip through some of those other questions to ponder about. You don't have to answer those questions, but they're there just to make you think a little bit if you download the slides, lecture number 2. So business process re-engineering as a topic for IT strategic management. to, as a focus. You can use IT, information systems in general, to re-engineer business processes. Well, why do you want to do that? Well, for continuous process improvement. When you set up a company and it grows, as things grow, this area here becomes weak, this department here becomes strong. You have different fluctuations that occur throughout the life of the growth, development of the company. You might find that you've hired too many people. You might find that you have too many departments or not enough departments, or you have one department that's doing finance, accounting, and marketing when it could just be doing finance and accounting or something. So you can use business process re-engineering to kind of go through and analyze what people are doing and then apply information systems and IT to it to better organize it, to better structure it, and use it as a means of taking something that maybe is a manual process and automating it. Because what ends up happening, especially as a company grows, is that what we used to work doesn't work anymore. Now, the way that they used to do something, they have to do something else as well, and then something else as well. And so what ends up happening, especially if you're consulting and you're going into a company, you find out, oh, this person prints out a report, gives it to so-and-so, who takes the report numbers and types it in to this other system, who prints it out for this person over here. And you start looking at how everyone's doing their work. And then that's where let's reorganize all this. If you create an application, let's say, that automatically sends the data, or you create a centralized database where people log into it, and you have forms and you have reporting capabilities, and people can generate their own reports. Then you don't have to manually print something out, send it over. What ends up happening, and when you do this business process reengineering, is you make everything more effective, more efficient, I should say. It takes less time for people to do their jobs, hopefully, so they can do more. So a lot of times when people think, oh, business process reengineering, oh, we're going to have layoffs. Yeah, actually, they kind of go hand in hand with layoffs. Because if you got 5 people and half of them are wasting your time with manual processes, you probably could break all of their work down so that maybe 2 or 3 people can be doing those jobs, and then get rid of the excess people, which is generally what ends up happening when you start reorganizing work. It's like, well, you're here, you're working because you need to do this. Was that all you're doing? Well, let's automate it. You're gone. Oh, well, you can do this other thing that this other person was doing because he's gone now. And then, because the biggest thing, especially in American companies, when they start laying people off, everyone always goes, well, who's going to do my job when they get rid of me? Well, if the company's actually doing a good job and is redefining everyone's role and is doing some business process reengineering, your job may not even exist anymore. And it's not a question of who's going to be doing my job. It's going to be like, what is the restructure? What new jobs, what new positions are now available, which is kind of the better way of thinking about it. So by definition, according to the slide here, fundamental rethinking, radical redesign of business processes to achieve dramatic improvement in cost, quality, speed, and service. It's kind of a generic definition. I gave you a longer one, but it's the same thing. And looking at the value chain analysis, we have this disintermediation to the customer. And if you took my IS course, you've seen this already. But for those people who weren't in the IS course, because I don't think you guys were, this is kind of an interesting phenomena that occurs, and this is actually part of e-commerce in terms of the disintermediation. We can apply this to our own value chain without e-commerce, without the internet. I presented this with an e-commerce example in the IS class. However, in a more generic sense, the layers in the value chain in terms of getting a product to a consumer, so you have a manufacturer, you have a consumer, all these layers of distribution that are part of the chain. If you start removing the layers, it reduces the costs. So a lot of IT can be implemented to reduce the number of layers, to get rid of the intermediate, which is why they call it disintermediation. You get rid of those things that are adding costs. It's kind of like if you, in fact, somebody was, after the last class, I think, I don't know, I can't remember which class it was, somebody said, well, I called eBay an e-business. And I said, well, it's because, they only exist on the internet, and they don't, you can't, if the internet were to go down, so would eBay, kind of thing. And they say, well, no, they have eBay stores. I'm like, how can you have an eBay store? You walk into a store, and long story short, what she was telling me was there's a store for people that don't have computers. You can go into the store with your items. They'll list it for you on eBay, and they take a commission for it. It's not a bad idea, but there's another layer. So that's an example of this adding. Instead of getting rid of it, you're adding layers to it, which means that person who's got and let's say they're selling a TV, and they really want $200 for the TV. Well, if they actually listed it on eBay themselves and got rid of the other people in the value chain, and they were the only ones in there, they're going to make their $200, hopefully. Now, actually, today they'll probably make less for a TV. But if they go to the eBay store and the salesperson takes 10%, 20% off the commission, they're going to make less. So that's actually the exact opposite of what people want to do this day, but it's actually not a bad business. In fact, that's how people go into business sometimes. They automate, they provide services for people who don't know how to use services, essentially. In fact, that's what the concept was with a lot of the web van and the purchasing. In fact, you can still get like personal shoppers online. What they do is they go out and they buy all the stuff for you and they bring it to you, and they charge you a commission for finding it. It's like finder's fee. It's like people buy cars that way. But if you don't want to spend the time to go looking for it, you can hire someone to do it for you. It's going to cost you more. That's the compromise. So to turn it around and say, well, I'm the business and I want to save money. I don't want to pay all these intermediate people. What we're looking at here is 3 different examples. And the interesting thing is that if you look at the cost per the sweater, and what this is actually probably, it's a little dark over here, but it says customer in those little boxes. And over here it says customer, customer, customer. We're going from manufacturer on one end. On the top here, we have the most cost to the customer of $48.50 because we're using a distributor. So let's say the manufacturer is in China, shipping it, let's say, to the US, going through a distributor who's selling it to a retailer. And let's say the retailer is Target. You're buying a sweater at Target, let's say, for example. I don't know if Target sells sweaters, but I think they do. So then Target sells it to the customer, and it's $48.50. So let's say the manufacturer gets rid of the distribution house and says, well, we're just going to sell directly to Target. We're not going to go through a hub, an import-export company or something. We're going to ship it directly to the Target stores. Then the cost of the sweater to the customer is only $40, let's say, and 34 cents. I don't know, these are just made up numbers. And then let's say the manufacturer says, let's get rid of the retailer. Let's say the customer can go online and buy the same sweater that they would have bought at Target. How many people have done that before? You go online and you say, well, if I go to Target or Macy's or whatever, they have this sweater. But look, it's right here. I have one just like it. It has another color. I can buy it right here. What do you normally pay? The same price that you would probably pay in the store, right? But look at the cost. Here, it's only $20.45. It's half the price, usually, of what it would cost to go through all of these different channels. And this is why I bring this up when I talk about e-commerce. It's a good deal. Who's it a good deal for? The manufacturer. So what ends up happening is people go and they go, oh, let's go to Fry's Electronics. You walk in a Fry's store and you have a computer. Let's say it's a MacBook, and it's for $1,000. And you go online and you find it for $950. Oh, super deal. And you pay $75 in shipping, and it costs you $1,025 in the end. You actually paid a lot more than you think you paid for it. Because when you bought it online, whether you bought it from the retailer, well, actually, if you bought it from the retailer, from Fry's, you're paying about the same. You're going to pay the same price, whether you bought it in the store or if you bought it online, along with the shipping charges, actually. But let's say you bought it from Apple directly, and they sold it for you for the same price that Fry's sold it for you. Maybe they cut it by $10 or $15, which is what they'll do, actually. They're not cutting it by 50%. They're cutting it by less than that, which means the manufacturer is the one who's making the most money in this model chain, which means if you're going to do this, you're going to be a manufacturer. You're not going to go through distribution. You're going to sell from manufacturer directly to customer, essentially. And it kind of shows you that although you think you're getting a super deal when you buy it online for $10 less or something, you're actually making more money. The company's making more money off of you when you sell it online. Because not only that, but you're paying for the shipping as well. So, and that's such a good deal when you think about it. So theoretically, things that are online that are coming from manufacturers should be dirt cheap. Should be half the price you pay for them in the store. Especially when it takes you twice as long to get it because it's being drop shipped from China or something. So, all right. So business process reengineering versus business improvement. There's actually a distinction between the two. We have different. There's two columns here. Hopefully, actually, it came out pretty clear on that projector system. And in one column we have the business improvement. On the other column we have the business process reengineering. In terms of the level of change, we always think of this as incremental when we do improvements. Improvements, we added a new service, we reorganized a little bit. It's a radical change, which is why before when I said business process reengineering, everyone thinks about layoffs. It's when we find out, you walk in Monday morning and half the company's gone. Whoa, it's really radical, it's overnight. And the process change, in terms of the differences, the improved new version of the process, hopefully, if you're doing some improvement versus a brand new process in general. So I always make this distinction. I'm not going to go through the rest of the slide. You'll be bored. You'll be bored stiff. You can read it on your own. But the point I'm trying to make is when we do a business improvement, we're not necessarily implementing technology or information systems. We're just making a business improvement. So we see more of a change with strategic IT with business process reengineering because it's more radical. It's more focused. And we're going to see we can do business improvements without any technology changes at all. So it usually just generally follows through with business process reengineering, which is why you'll hear a lot when people say, oh, we implemented this new network system, we're doing business process reengineering. Is it a business improvement? Sometimes they're not doing business process reengineering. Sometimes they're doing a business improvement and they're applying technology towards it. That is a waste of money. And if they're doing that, then you know, oh, there's a problem here. They should be doing business process reengineering. Because if, for example, they did something here and they improved, they gave me a better quality projector, what benefit are they going to get out of that? Nothing. And they've improved the business process, but they cost themselves more money. They're not receiving any benefit from it in terms of a cost. Now, if they got rid of me, then that might actually be an improvement. No, it may not be an improvement. It would be a restructuring, and then I'd be in the unemployment line, but that's a different story. Let's move on. It's a bad example. I want to talk about that. So, stockless inventory compared to traditional and just-in-time supply methods. So, I don't know. I remember when I was in business school, actually, everything was just-in-time. I'm going to start dating myself, but that was a while ago. And things like, oh, we don't need a warehouse anymore. So they got rid of warehouses, and they started with just-in-time. Now they got rid of just-in-time. Now we don't have any inventory at all. That's a better way of going, I think. Because let's say you're a Barnes & Noble, and actually, let's go back to this. This is an interesting question to ask yourself. If you're online at Barnes & Noble, why are you paying the same price? Maybe $5 less. Maybe, if you're lucky. Then if you went and walked into a Barnes & Noble store and bought the same identical book, in fact, sometimes you're paying the same price plus shipping. When that book is coming from the publisher. So it's the bottom line here. It's being drop shipped because Barnes & Noble doesn't have any inventory. It's inventoryless. So what they've got is a nice agreement with the publishers, Pearson's, and I'm not going to go to all the publishers that exist. But it's being drop shipped, and if you look at the box, it'll say MBS Press, Pearson's Publishing, and it won't have any invoice or anything on it. It'll be a box with a book that shows up. Maybe if you're lucky, you'll see a Barnes & Noble sticker, or maybe they'll add Barnes & Noble to the return address, because it tells the customer where it came from. Oh yeah, I bought this from Barnes & Noble. Because what ends up happening, and when they first started doing this, people got confused. Something would show up in the mail. It would be from Pearson's Publishing, be like, I didn't buy anything from Pearson's Publishing. And then they realize, oh, it's Barnes & Noble. Oh, did I buy it from Pearson's? I thought I bought it from Barnes & Noble. And then the customer gets confused. So now they're playing around with the labels a little bit. But essentially, you're actually not buying it from Barnes & Noble. I mean, you're buying it from Pearson's, who's the manufacturer, selling it through Barnes & Noble, through their e-commerce engine to you. Barnes & Noble's taking a cut, taking a commission on the transaction. They haven't even seen the product. They don't even know what you bought. Essentially, it's a piece of paper. It's an electronic transaction that's going through the system. Why are you paying the same price? Then if you walked into a Barnes & Noble store where they got staff, they got books, inventory that they have to actually pay for, they have handling, they have received the goods, they bought the goods, they have it, they're selling it to you. There's extra expenses associated with that is built into the price in the traditional business model. But with an inventory-less system, it goes directly to the customer. It doesn't cost anything, but they still make it's the best thing in the world because it makes Barnes & Noble more money. Tongue twister. All right, so you can go through the examples here where we got stock list inventory method on the bottom where we have this bulk storage. A lot bigger delivery services to a hospital floor versus the traditional delivery where we have bulk storage delivery to a storeroom. So basically, it's kind of like that other slide. We're getting rid of the storerooms here. We're not doing any more storage. A lot of people on eBay do this, believe it or not. Talk about your disintermediation. They don't own any product, but there's tons of people that sell products all the time. All they do is they call up the person who's manufacturing it and say, hey, send it to this customer, send it to that customer. It's called drop shipping, essentially. They've never seen the product before. They have no idea what they're selling. But they're essentially the sales agent for it. So.
Do they make anything on it?
They make a ton of money off of that. What are you talking about? Really? They get a discount. They buy it from the manufacturer for a discount, sell it to the customer. They get a commission on it. Then they don't even have to touch it. They don't even know what they're selling. Well, they know what they're selling, hopefully. They've seen samples. But in a lot of cases, they're being shipped from the manufacturer to the customer through this intermediate channel, aka the eBay seller, who's got thousands of them listed out there. Maybe they see it, but why? If you think about the concept, why are you going to take possession of it anyway? Why pay to have something shipped to you when you're just going to turn it around and ship it to somebody else? And it's the same. You're saving the shipping expense, the inventory expense, all of that overhead, and it's just going from the manufacturer to the customer directly. In a perfect world, everything would be like that, right? And that's how kind of some of the e-commerce models are so effective, because in an e-commerce environment, a manufacturer located in China, India, anywhere in the world can provide not quite the same quality of service, but similar customer service, sales. They can actually kind of break out of the model of being a manufacturer and actually being a retailer. So they're going to have a split identity, essentially they're playing a different role. Only problem is like, going back to my comment about customer service, because that's going on, it's one of the reasons why customer service is kind of degraded in quality over, the last couple of years or so, because now we have people who really aren't customer service people, who really aren't sales, who really aren't retailers, who are acting like retailers. And trust me, the quality of service you get from a manufacturer is not the same as from a retail store. So I'm hoping the trend has actually already started. Within the next 5 years, we'll be noticing a little bit more higher quality customer service from people who are actually retailers, because that's the value add that they're giving you. And there's got to be a reason why customers are going to want to use retailers. Otherwise, we just buy everything from the manufacturer, not go through retail channels. So anyway, that's enough said on that. I think you guys understand the inventory list concept. Get rid of the warehouses, get rid of the storage, go directly. Cross-functional processes. There's another way that we can implement, shifting gears a little bit, because we are still talking about strategic advantages, things that we can use IT for in terms of the implementation. Why not use IT to bridge the gap, going back to the value chain in the chain in terms of the company processes to bridge the gap between the departments and the processes. There's another common problem that happens. It's like something goes into some department, some piece of information arrives at the marketing department that says people just don't like that aqua green color, and we should stop selling aqua green colors. And the people in the sales department, they oh yeah, did you hear about that? Aqua green's not good. But who tells R&D? Nobody. You know, it actually happens every company you're at. People in the front have a different version of what should be done than people in the back, or people in this department doesn't talk to this department, there's no communication, or they have a company meeting when they get everybody together, but everybody's afraid to talk, nobody's going to mention anything. And then when you do say something and you're just a salesperson, oh, the customers don't like this aqua green, we throw them all away, or you're a bakery, nobody buys this product, we just throw them all away. And people just secretly throw them all away every day. Why produce them? So in a real life environment, in terms of cross-functional processes, you can actually use technology to bridge the gap, to make the left hand talk to the right hand, to get the departments actually working together. This is done a lot with new product development, feedback, especially with, as an example, you're a huge car manufacturer, and you have service departments, you have dealerships, let's say you're BMW, and there's a problem. As an example, people are coming in and they're noticing that the leather seats are coming undone. The stitching on the bottom of the leather seats, actually this was a recall, are coming undone. And all the service departments all over the world are changing the seats out, or fixing, patching it up. Well, if you actually put it into the same system, which is connected now, the people that are working in service departments are keeping logs. This is why they always put everything in a computer. So that at any one time, someone at headquarters over wherever BMW headquarters is located can look up and see actually that, wow, 2,000 of this model car, they all got their seats repaired. Uh-oh, there's a problem. And then go to manufacturing and fix it so you don't produce any more cars with bad seats, which is sort of the way that this cross-functional process actually works. And how that's actually working is integration between service, sales, marketing, R&D, putting everybody together. Easier said than done because everyone knows, oh, put a network together. Well, we're all networked. Great. But none of us are sharing any applications. Okay, well, we can't share applications. Let's say it's impossible. With the salespeople, they have a different application that they're using than the service people. Then you have what's called middleware that bridges the gap and does it using technology, which is the current trend. Either you have a backbone database system that's capturing all of the information from all of the different applications that everybody's using and putting everything together for you and giving you statistical analysis tools and stuff and putting it on a common platform so everyone can use it. That's actually kind of the way it should be done. It's not like you can go out there and buy a network system. You actually have to configure and think about how are we going to share this, and if we're not going to do it manually, how are we going to do it in an automatic kind of way. And that's where things like SAP with PeopleSoft, a bunch of stuff comes into play for business-related information, because then you can actually do some reporting, some statistical analysis, and some stuff on information that came from all different sources that is not necessarily part of what you're doing. Okay, so this slide has business processes on it, business functions, and it's got things like such as a proposal and a commitment connected with a sale, and manufacturing out here for configuration, and then finance working with credit checking, and also with billing and collections, and which is kind of interesting because even today you come into companies and you buy something, let's say, but you owe the company money. Or something, they sell it to you anyway because they don't know that you owe them money, or the other way around, they owe you money and you have a balance, you have a credit balance, but you can't use it because they don't know about it. You have to go call headquarters to get your balance transferred over or something. Yeah, you find this a lot of times with companies that don't have any type of cross-functional system or IT put into place. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand's talking about. And then people take advantage of that system, actually. They come in and they use credits 20 times, and The credit's already been used. Company doesn't owe them any more money, but they keep extending credit out for some reason because they go into the database and they go, oh, look, it's still there. Or you know what ends up happening, especially with a lot of people that don't have network systems, they have printouts. You know, every time you ever see anyone looking at a printout, bad news, because that data is only as valid as the second that it was printed out. Something else changed in the system. You can't do banking with printouts. You can't do anything associated with, you know, any type of transaction with a printout. And even so, even a sales receipt is bad news too. If you think about it, that's why a lot of companies are actually doing returns on the computer. They don't even need a sales receipt anymore. Because, you know, a sales receipt, when you bought something, it printed it out. It's old. It's right there. It's already outdated. So you have people that take the same item. Let's say they have extra items or something, or they stolen items. The same. In fact, this happened at a Fry's Electronics, which is why Fry's is doing everything now online. Everything is on the computer, even the returns. Because then you know if the item was returned, any location. So actually what they had, and this was actually in the media about 6-7 years ago, they had employees that were buying an item, and then the employee would steal like 5 more of that item, and then take the printed receipt back and return the item 5 times. You know, you obviously just do the math. You can figure out, you can probably make a lot of money doing that. Well, now they do pat-downs and checks on all their employees to make sure they're not stealing anything, but if they're using a computer program, the computer's already going to know. It's going to be updated and know that that item has already been returned. And you can't just take this printout and go to another store. Or actually, you could probably just go to the same store over again and just get a different person and return it again and then again and again and again. So anyway, and you can't rely upon someone taking and crossing something out. That's the old-fashioned way. When they return an item, they always put a cross through it. Anyone can draw on it. So, it's like the check fraud, actually. If the banking system can figure out how to automate, they actually almost have it down, how to automate check processing, that would solve check fraud right there. Because we wouldn't rely upon a printout. It's like the Nigerian check scams and stuff, where they send you this fake check in the mail, and it's supposed to be a reimbursement of your funds that you loaned them. And you take the check to the bank, and they go, this is not a real check. This is a piece of paper. This is garbage. But with modern technology, you'd think that they would have an electronic form of a check that would provide some validation, that, outside of a routing number and a banking number and account number and stuff like that. But anyway, that's a totally different story. The banking industry needs a little bit more IT, a little more information systems as well, to be fully fraud-proof, I should say. All right, agility. Another reason, or another way to essentially take advantage of strategic IT. By definition, the ability of a company to prosper in rapidly changing and continually, this is such a long sentence, continually fragmented global markets for high-quality, high-performance, customer-configured products and services. Okay, the ability to change rapidly, how's that? You're not stuck in stone. You can actually change and adapt quickly. You can use IT to do that. And a company, an agile company, can make a profit, in different ranges of short-term model lifetimes, can produce orders individually and in arbitrary lot sizes. You're not stuck. You get this with old-fashioned manufacturers that used to ship stuff out all boxed together. The more agile you are, the more flexible you are. So you can't be a non-agile company and work with Barnes & Noble because every book you send out is going to have the same return label and the same packaging. Now you can actually buy products from manufacturers that come in specialized packaging, in specialized quantities, like 2 per box, 3 per box, with blue and white labels instead of red and orange labels or something, with your company logo on it. So personalized packaging makes, and you can use IT to actually facilitate that by automating the process a little bit. And if you're using IT, hopefully you're quick, because if you're too slow, you can't do it. It takes too long, which is why a lot of companies won't do it. You call up the manufacturer, oh, we can't do that for you. Well, it's going to take too long. we'll get the product to you next Christmas. Oh, okay, that's not going to work. So becoming an agile company, here's the example would be like Dell Computers, where they're a customer-focused company. They come up, actually Dell does a lot of company and site licenses and corporate. In fact, I'm trying to think, it was Gateway actually that did the first kind of computer lab environment, where every couple of years they'd come out and swap the computers. And actually, I worked at a school that did that. Actually, they had a Gateway contract. It was pretty nice because still even today, computers change daily, kind of like printouts. But if you stocked you spent the money to put in computer lab, and a year from now, there's a new operating system out, and you're trying to teach students up-to-date software, up-to-date utilities. It's going to be impossible to stay up to date and still afford to be in business. So you get a company that comes out and customizes everything for you, puts everything in place. Another year they come out and they replace it all. Another year they come out and replace it all. And then they figure out how to get rid of the used computers. Actually, they just remanufacture them. They sell them as refurbished. If you ever went to a store and bought anything that was refurbished, it went through a system. It was previously used for some utility, some company, or it was manufacturer recalled or something, and it got refurbished and changed. So in terms of Dell, it's a customer-focused company. They do massive customization. They have different computer systems. Actually, Dell works a lot with universities as well for discounts and for programs for providing computing stuff. They built an order business model. Tight supply chain management. They only produce what they're going to sell. They produce specially designed configured systems. Actually, you got a Dell right there. You probably just went to Fry's and bought it, though. No?
Best Buy.
Oh, Best Buy. Yeah, rarely more than 2 hours worth of parts inventory. That's also an interesting thing. So you can take manufacturing. Let's say you know that these guys are going to want a certain processor, or they're going to want a certain video card because they're using these computers for this graphic application or something. That they need certain configurations for. Well, they'll actually will take and you can build. You need 20 of these. Okay, they'll go ahead and build them for you, and they'll ship them to you. Within a reasonable amount of time, not next Christmas. It's going to happen like within a normal purchasing kind of thing. Apple sort of does that too. You can go on the website and say, I want this, I want this, I want that. Most companies will do it in terms of how much memory you want, how big of a hard drive. But what ends up happening is these computer companies, they have these configurations. It has this processor, this memory, this, and you buy per configuration. What Dell does is they'll just build the system depending upon what you need it for. And you spec it out. You tell them what you want. Because everybody who makes computers are all a bunch of parts. You put the parts together, you get a computer, right? So what parts do you want? And they build it for you, which is great for customization. So mass customization, by definition, provides individualized products while maintaining high volumes of production. So it's kind of like the manufacturer producing different lines of different products for different people who want to buy them, and being agile enough so that they can switch, which is the whole concept. In the old days when we did manufacturing without technology, it's like you put the order in, a month later it comes off the assembly line, they're all the same. And to make a little change on that assembly line was complicated. Now if you add computers to that, you automate the whole process. All the parts lists, everything is on the computer. It gets printed out at the manufacturing facility. Everything gets ordered automatically. Everything is streamlined a lot faster. So you can pretty much be a manufacturer and be very flexible in terms of what you're producing. So agile competitors, the customer, the partnering, the operations are different types of the customer being flexible, or partnering being flexible. You can go through, but what this slide is showing you is the role of the IT and an example that's associated with it. And just for the top one as an example, the type of agility would be the customer. And an example of that would be eBay customers. That's de facto product development. Because you are shopping as an eBay customer, you're agile because you're quickly changing. You could be shopping for a home appliance or for a textbook or for a computer or something. And then the sellers are also like that as well. They can be selling anything. You're not stuck to one product line. If you were a company, as an example, and you're selling products, if you switched your products overnight, people would be too confused. They'd be like, what's going on? You know, I thought you sold computers. Now you're selling clothing. You know, what? I don't understand. Where am I supposed to buy my computers now? You know, so it's a different environment, and it can provide competition. You can easily switch between products if you're agile in terms of a consumer or also as a seller. So now we actually talk about, well, some people call virtual companies e-businesses. They're actually different. So an e-business exists online, doesn't exist in the real world. eBay is an e-business. A virtual company is an organization that uses information technology to link people, organization, assets, and ideas. Are they a business? Essentially they are. A lot of people call them the same thing, but sometimes the virtual company doesn't actually exist. It's not the virtual company that you set up when you go to the store and buy easy web development kit, a prepackaged web page, and you stick it up, or you buy actually a service these days and they'll build the site for you, and voila, you're a company. You know, you're vaporware, virtual. This is more along the lines of a company. PayPal is a virtual company. PayPal is excellent because it provides a service and communication. It's owned by eBay. It exists because of eBay, essentially, but they actually weren't originally owned by eBay. They started out as a separate company. But they're a good match because it provides the communication for the transaction processing between the customer and the seller and the cut that comes into eBay. I mean, they have to get their commission. They make something on everything you sell. In fact, PayPal makes something on everything you sell, so everybody makes something. They're a virtual company. They don't actually, do they sell a product? They sell a service. They don't actually exist. Well, they exist, but they're virtual. So then you can't go walk into a PayPal store. They don't exist. They actually do link. They link banks, but they're not a bank. They don't actually provide banking services at all. They actually provide a fake. You can actually get a PayPal ATM card to use with your PayPal virtual funds, but your funds are virtual. They don't actually exist in PayPal. They're in between your bank and when you're using them. So it's actually the entire company is virtual. Think about it in concept. If you haven't used PayPal, then you probably didn't understand the example. But if you ever buy anything online, check out PayPal. And don't respond to those PayPal spam fraud messages. You know, if you don't have a PayPal account, then ignore all of those messages. And then if you do, ignore all the messages as well, because they don't send you messages like that. There's a lot of fraud because PayPal is like one of those companies that nobody understands. Well, if you're not familiar with them, you don't understand it. If you're a grandma, grandpa, you're a 12-year-old kid or something, PayPal, you know, nobody gets it until they start using it. You're familiar with it, so it's an easy one to defraud people with, essentially. All right, we are going to get through the rest of this lecture, believe it or not. So, let's see, Enterprise Information Systems. I said that right. So by definition, IS implemented on extranets among the company and its suppliers, companies, subcontractors, competitors, with whom it has formed alliances. This is not eBay. This is like eBay, but not eBay. This is supply chain management, modern day supply chain management systems, where you have vendors you buy from. You have a production schedule. You have customers who've ordered specialized parts that you've put into the system that you're going to use in your manufacturing because you're agile. You're able to produce these customized mass customization products. And this system is on your private intranet, usually, and people are authorized to log into it, and they're authorized to give you bids on certain pieces and products. And the whole system is kind of bringing, like almost like an auction site, bringing all the suppliers with all of the involved parties, with all of the scheduling and all of the information together, and automating the process of the communication between everybody. Making it so that You can automatically get a bid without actually having to, in the old days, pick up a phone and ask somebody. So somebody goes to Dell and says, well, I need 100 of these models done. The way that they do it goes through this kind of the system for supply chain. It gets sourced out. Oh, we've never bought this type of CD-ROM drive that you want before. But the CD-ROM drive dealers that we communicate with, that we buy drives from, can go ahead and take a look at, oh, they need this. Oh, I have this. I can give it to you on this date, and this is the price. And somebody else can come in and outbid or underbid or just, oh, that's a good price, leave it alone. I'll sell you something else. And so everyone can kind of get along and communicate, and your production actually gets done correctly. You only get pieces that you want. It's usually by agreement. You can't go in from an outside party. It's not, that's why I say it's not like an eBay where people that don't know each other. It's usually by alliances, put together by alliances. So, and here's well, I just gave you an example of it, but here's another one with virtual company strategies with Cisco Systems, with virtual manufacturing alliances, basically for supply chain, for manufacturing support. And they have created manufacturing companies. They have an alliance through the system. 3 companies involved in the alliance. They provide agile build-to-order systems, or build-to-order products, by essentially automating the parts gathering. And here's kind of like what it looks like. The intranet, as I described, in the middle here. And on the outside, we have the subcontractors. We have extra cross-functional teams, engineering teams, and alliances with competitors and all sorts of different outside parties that all connect to the system, interchange their part of it. They don't all have it. It's a private network, but they don't all have access to the same information. Suppliers can't go in and see what other suppliers are bidding on or have been providing and stuff. So it can be very customized. In fact, you won't find this type of system in every company. Like, it's a custom-built system that's going to basically exist for the company's benefit. In terms of the strategy of the virtual company, you share the infrastructure and risk with alliance partners, so that if you're the virtual company, as an example, PayPal, you're relying upon customers from eBay. You can't actually go out and get more customers on your own. You're in reliance, and you have that risk of, if eBay goes under, PayPal's going to go under. I don't think eBay's ever going to go under, but they kind of work together. So you're relying upon externals. And there's the link that's complementary core competencies, hopefully. They know what they're doing, you know what you're doing, you're all doing everything together. You reduce the concept to cache time through sharing. So you have the idea that actually everything goes faster because the communication exists. Increases facilities and market coverage, because now you have eBay's market. If you're PayPal, you have eBay's market share, and vice versa. So they're sharing a lot. You gain access to new markets, which is going back to the comment. That's because they were sharing so much. I think that was a wise move for eBay to buy PayPal, because PayPal is making a lot of money off of them. So if you think they're going to make that much money, buy them out. In the long run, they'll save money, essentially, because they don't have to pay PayPal anymore. They own them. So works out better. In fact, that's why some companies merge, actually. It's cheaper to buy the company than it is to continue buying their services or supporting them. Migrate from selling products to selling solutions as well. So if you're a virtual company, you're actually selling a solution. You could be selling a product. There's no limitation on that, but usually it's a package deal, like a solution to something. Now we have knowledge creating companies, lo and behold. And this particular type of company is looking at creating not a service or a product, but knowledge. So it consists of creating new business knowledge, disseminating knowledge, making it known throughout the company, quickly building a new knowledge into their products and services. This would be sort of like a system that's growing, changing, and adapting to their customers. It could be a service. And the service might be like, say, for example, your iTunes. That's a good example, actually. In the past, we didn't really have that many DVDs or recorded television shows. Now we do. So as a product that's adapted, essentially, to know that customers want to download this too. So we may or may not finish this lecture today. I'm thinking at the looks like there's about 20 more slides. It doesn't really matter, though, because all this stuff is valuable in terms of strategic IT. Types of knowledge. And I have another knowledge management lecture I'm going to give you, not today, but further down the road, that's going to talk a little bit more about, and I covered knowledge management and the concept of knowledge in my IS class as well, if you've taken that one. But to extend upon the concept and not repeat any of that, explicit and tactic are the two kind of main categories. We have other forms of it as well. In terms of the explicit, we have data, documents, writing things down, storing information. And then the tactic is the how-to knowledge, knowing how to do something. So we can create information systems using technology to actually do both, to accomplish both of those things. Most people, when they think about knowledge and they think about information systems, they think about, like I say, a database, and they think about data. But you can use information systems and technology to get at data, an address book, telephone list. But you can also get it to learn how to do something. In terms of the knowledge that comes out of it, how-to, instructions. Let's say you're in the field and you're trying to fix something. You can actually use the information system to tell you what you're supposed to look at. What number, what reading is this supposed to be at? What information am I supposed to get out of that? Stuff like that. So. In terms of knowledge management, by definition, we're looking at a system. Actually, I kind of explained this already when I talked about expert systems. But techniques, technologies, basically rewards for getting employees to share information might be part of it. In the old days, if you had a salesperson and they had a sales list, a customer client list, nobody shared it. It was like in their own, most of it was done in spreadsheets, and it was theirs. Well, if you use a knowledge management system, what you can do is draw all the salespeople together and make them share their leads and their list. And why do you want to do that? Because you don't want like 5 people calling the same person. Which is why sales automation systems make a lot of sense. Because then what if the guy's out sick? You know, then you can look at his call list and say, hey, he's supposed to call so-and-so back, you know, to find out if they're interested in buying this or something. So more than one person can handle the customer. They can share the information, share the leads, share the knowledge, which is, you know, originally wasn't so good for the salesperson, but it's better for the company. So it creates more knowledge that's obtainable. Also, it kind of encapsulates it and makes it part of the company and not their own personal knowledge. Because as you grow, actually, in the company creates knowledge. And unless you're capturing that knowledge, you're losing out in the end. Because the longer the company exists, you have that asset that knowledge that's created as an asset. That's almost like goodwill. It's a sellable product, a sellable part of the company. But if you don't have it, you can't sell it. And how do you have it? Well, if you're relying on the people that are working at the company to provide it on a daily basis, you're never going to get it because those people are going to leave eventually. Or they're going to bribe you for the knowledge in the long run. So if you can use information systems and technology to capture that knowledge on a daily basis and require them to report it and house it so you can use it. Levels of knowledge management. This is actually coming from an IS text where we've got document management on the bottom, which is kind of the low end. In fact, it's kind of like a pyramid because the lower, I don't know, called this blue kind of bottom of the pyramid is wider than the top. So there's more of it, essentially by volume. You break the pyramid out into 3 different sections. In the middle, we have information that's created, sharing. This would be like the sales leads up here. This would be like the sales receipts, invoices. And on the top, we have the expertise intelligent that comes out of that says, this is our best-selling product. Or these are our strongest selling salespeople. Or highest selling or highest contracting realtors or something, and depending upon the type of business that you're looking at. So, all right, let's see what the time is. Is it time yet? I don't know. You guys want more? You're the boss. I'm just the employee. I'm going to be replaced by a projector soon, too. I'm just kidding. Well, we got kind of a late start-ish. Not really. It's about time. Have you guys had information overload, or do you want more? I know you guys just showed up, so you're ready to go. You're about an hour late. Okay, we'll go for 2 or 3 more slides. and then I'll finish because I can actually talk about shareware here a little bit. Then I might, you know what, I might be able to finish this. Let me see if I can just finish this lecture. Then I'll let you guys go. All right, so the last case study I'm going to talk about in my wind down here. Shareware grows up, essentially taking how software cooperative software works. Believe it or not, if you think about the old open source, how in the world can you get open source without the internet or without a network? You know, in the old Linux systems for you computer science people, you know, you went to repositories, you got programs, you got sources for the programs, it was all organized out. It took a network. You can't do it. If you're on an island of your own with a computer, you can't share anything. You can't download open source or shareware or anything. So the concept of technology and information systems kind of played a huge role in that kind of development, still strong today, actually. And the concept of shareware kind of grew up because what ended up happening was multiple people would work on something, somebody would work on something and give it out, distribute it, share it through information systems to other people. Those people would work on it, or those people would give their input. And there was a lot of communication going on. You can actually use that in development of your product, which is how people came out with, you know, A version, B version, beta versions and things, you know. And a lot of internet development is done this way. In fact, this is how Google develops their products and their services. So as a company, they're using technology. Well, they're using their technology, their Google engine. The first version, as an example, of Gmail, I don't know how long you guys have been using that, but almost every human being has Gmail accounts now. Wide share. First version of it didn't really do very much, actually. Didn't have anything. Every time you log in, it's, oh, this new feature now. This new thing has been changed, and that has been changed, and it's basically grown up. It's basically free software that you've been using that has matured through time, through user feedback. So there was a lot of communication going on. That's a great example of using technology and information to grow a product or a service. Same thing true for their mapping applications, coming up for their cloud stuff. Everything is kind of maturing and growing as it's being used and developed. And the technology is what's basically bridging the gap, essentially, between you as the consumer and the company. So from the slide, your companies that pay a membership, which entitles you to use intellectual property or co-op so you can share, kind of thing. Or sometimes there's no pay for the membership. There's services that you can sign up for and use. Like a good example of that would be Google Voice. That I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's voice over IP. And I heard they were going to start charging for it, but they haven't. So I heard it like the first of the year, because I use that sometimes, but not very secure actually. But because all of that communication is recorded for data mining. In fact, Google's a huge data mining company. So don't think any of your emails are confidential or anything of your voice calls are confidential or not. Actually, they're all over the internet. So you're being mined as a customer, as a consumer, which is interesting because we're now going to have different customized applications out in the future that are going to be targeted at you. And Google's learning a lot about you every time you send an email message. So. All right, so members of the company donate intellectual property, they cooperate, they adapt, they troubleshoot problems, they form subgroups, they communicate, they develop together as a group, which provides communication. And the benefits of it decrease the cost of the ownership of the software. Actually, it makes it free in some cases. And co-ops actually become responsible for assets, also ensure that there's a clear title so member companies can't be sued later. Actually, Google's really good at that too. If you haven't noticed, there's so many disclaimers on everything. We're providing this for you, and you agree not to sue us, ever. We're going to use all of your information. Okay. We're going to use your address book. Yeah, okay. And on the larger installation bases, there's lower cost of ongoing maintenance and things of that nature. Challenge, getting members to really collaborate. Are you really going to give Google all of your personal information? That's why I just said a few minutes ago, I don't use Google Voice for confidential conversations. Because the reason is they record everything. Actually, I actually have a bad example. I learned that lesson the hard way, actually. I called up Verizon Wireless to pay my cell phone bill, and I gave them my ATM card number over a Google voice call. The very next hour, within the hour, actually, which is amazing, My card was used at 3 other locations throughout the United States on the internet. So I had to call it because the bank, I didn't know about it until the bank called me and said, hey, you know what, there's some activity going on in your card right now. Way past your limit. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, then, you know, the charges were reversed. The company, I filed a dispute on it. Long story short, but it took less than an hour for that card information to be distributed all over the internet. Recorded on a Google Voice conversation. So don't ever use your credit card on a Google Voice. Or any voice over IP, but I don't know, some services like maybe Vonage might have security, I don't know. Google Voice does not. It's free for a reason, but you know, actually, I have heard stories of people who have sent Gmail with passwords, account numbers, and it all gets stolen. Never put anything personal in a Gmail email either. All right, so the questions on here, you know, basically getting at can you get a competitive advantage from it? You know, what do you see as the potential risks associated with this type of an approach? There's a lot of risks. There's a lot of sharing of intellectual property. And then I forgot there was one more case study on here. We're almost done. The satisfaction versus the loyalty was another case study that came out in terms of looking at strategic advantage of IT. Satisfying customer is one who sees you as meeting expectations. So you can use IT to actually, you know, improve the quality of customer service, satisfaction, loyalty programs, keeping track of your customer. Sometimes just somebody knowing who you are as a customer is a benefit, which is why companies like Amazon, if you're logged in, will say, welcome back, Barbara. Last time you bought this, this, and this. Guess what? We have a new version of it now. Or when you buy something, customers who bought this also bought this and this and this. Data mining applications to kind of provide that customer satisfaction, loyalty. You know, like, we appreciate the fact that you bought this book from us or something. You know. Good loyalty programs combine customer feedback, hopefully, and business information with sophisticated analysis, hopefully. Hopefully it's using something from the customer and it's not just guesswork. And there are some programs out there that just kind of junk mail. You know, it's just guesswork. You know, oh, you were looking for a camera, so now all of a sudden, you know, you're being force feeding you ads for something you already bought. It's like, you know, that's not really nice, actually. So with good customer loyalty technology, IT can wire the voice of the customer, hopefully, back into the enterprise, get the customer what they want, and you know, companies like Apple, like big companies that can actually take large-scale feedback and process it, can benefit from it. Just because you're getting the feedback doesn't necessarily mean you're processing it or the company is processing it. It takes the IT infrastructure and information systems to actually house it, create some way of using it. There's a lot of companies that collect a lot of information and they never do anything with it. I wouldn't call that a customer satisfaction or loyalty program, and I wouldn't call that an effective use of IT either. It's kind of like garbage after time, because sometimes they don't even categorize it correctly, so they don't even know what they have in the long run. So, so how can IT help gathering customers' experience data, hopefully? Maybe with emails rather than telephone calls, reducing survey cycle times, making surveys shorter by actually knowing what questions to ask. The worst thing in the world is to say, okay, I'll answer the survey, and then 10 minutes later you're still answering the survey, which you don't necessarily want to do. Building validity, multivariate measurements, hopefully different criteria that you're looking at in terms of customer satisfaction expectations, software-generated models, maybe. And some questions regarding that, CDWs, things. So, all right, so we are getting to the bottom, to the last summary. So what I just went through in the last lecture this week, and so next week we'll move on to bigger and better topics. Information technologies that support the competitive strategies, which is really the focus of this particular class, actually. Looking at, you know, strategies to reduce cost, lower expenses, provide leadership, perhaps some differentiation, innovation, growth, and then this last part I've been talking about today was more along the lines of alliance and bringing suppliers with customers and basically customizing your manufacturing and stuff like that. So you can use it to help build customer-focused businesses, maybe, hopefully. Re-engineer business processes. This is the other example I gave you today. Business becoming agile. Use technology to give yourself more flexibility in terms of what you're doing. The more flexible you are, the easier you can change. And for some strange reason, as time goes, businesses have to be more flexible. Like in the old days, a business was like, we make tires. That's all we made, tires. And it was only one kind of tire. Now you did that, you're not going to survive. You're going to make all shapes and sizes and types of materials, and then you got to, what is the customer going to want next? So you got to be able to adapt, and in order to do that, you have to use technology these days. And then also the concept of creating virtual companies, we don't actually have too many of them. I mean, PayPal is pretty much the only example I can come up with right now. I'm sure there's other ones out there, but there's a handful. So I'm pretty sure we have more room in the market for more virtual companies for people who want to invent those. And then building knowledge, creating companies that actually acquire and use the knowledge. Because if you can do that, then you've got the best of both worlds, essentially. I mean, you've got a product, you've got a service, you've got knowledge and know-how, and you have something you can sell, or you have something that you can use to continue to grow. So. All right, so that was the end of this particular lecture. And next week, I don't know what's on the menu, but we'll have something different. So. All right, thank you. Make sure to sign the roster if you came in late. The roster going around.